I was waiting for the recording in progress.
Did it go? Is it started?
I think it actually started recording a few minutes ago.
Oh
So
boy.
we're
Okay.
Great, we can
Great.
trim that off. Hello, I'm Allison. So today I'm going to talk about human subjects research, and the course that we are launching for COVES specifically. So I want to talk a little bit about the basics of what it is, why it matters, and specifically within the context of COVES. Many of you who do research, other research studies at your museum may already have certification, may already be familiar with this. So really try to focus this on COVES and for people who aren't familiar. So going to talk a little bit about what human subjects research training is broadly and why it matters, institutional review board and COVES and how that intersects with our work. And then Alex is going to take you through what we have and how we intend for it to be used. So human subjects research usually falls into two categories, either biomedical or social and behavioral research, with specific training courses for each and some of the specific considerations. We obviously fall in the latter of social and behavioral research. And so the legislation and the ethical considerations around these working with human subjects are primarily focused on past harms that have happened in the field of psychology and sociology and related spaces. Though often these courses talk about other past studies that have been harmful, like the Tuskegee experiments. So regardless of the type of research, it is important that everyone at all stages of participating in a research study is familiar with and can think through and plan and collect data ethically. So whether that's the person designing the study or the people collecting data. And for our purposes, we're really focused on those people collecting data for COVES. And generally, federally funded projects do require that everyone has certification if you are going to be working with people and with human subjects to help mitigate those harms. So generally, certification courses are really important for developing a shared understanding of research ethics, what is acceptable and what is not acceptable, understanding the past harms that inform current practices. So usually to walk through specific experiments or studies that were particularly harmful, not to say that those were the only ones that were harmful, but the big landmark cases that have informed legislation and regulations. Generally, just so we're all on the same page, collecting data ethically and responsibly. We are humans, and I always hope that people would respect my autonomy and ability to participate as much as I would respect somebody else's. And again, generally, this is required for federally funded studies for the aforementioned harms. And there's also a lot of circumstances which these courses go into where you might want the extra protection to saying, yes, everyone has gone through this kind of training. It's also a good practice, even if you are not required to do it, to have that same background and knowledge around what is considered ethically responsible. And so what's usually involved in these courses is it goes through historical examples, what went wrong or not went wrong, why it wasn't okay they did what they did, and current regulations. So talking about things like the Belmont Report or the prison experiment or the Common Rule, which is what currently is covers most of the type of research that we do. They're generally accompanied by some hypothetical situations, like if you were in this circumstance, how would you handle it? What is appropriate? And then almost universally, there is some quiz to demonstrate understanding, and that's required for certification. And there's a number of well-respected human subjects research certification programs with various time and cost requirements. If you are doing research beyond just COVES, I strongly recommend that you look into one of these programs to have a really robust understanding. But as you can see, this ranges from the shortest is about 3 hours to 7 or more hours. In the past, for data collectors, we have recommended the University of New Hampshire course as an acceptable low burden course. It was free, it was relatively short, though not necessarily a broad course for doing federally funded research. Something that we have run into time and time again is we have a good free course that we like, and either Flash Player isn't supported anymore, so that course doesn't exist, or it's no longer a free course, or for some reason the website shuts down, which is part of the impetus of us creating something for COVES data collectors. But so these range from the city program. If you are attached to a university, there's a decent chance that you have access to city certification. It is a long course. It is a very thorough course, and it's the certification that we use internally at the Museum of Science. You can do something like the Protecting Humans Research Participants course. It's a little bit shorter and a little cheaper. It's still a good time investment. Another good choice if you are going to be doing research studies. And then the US Department of Health and Human Services has a bunch of different courses. One of them is a Human Research Protection Foundational Training. Most of these are written with the perspective of you are designing research, you are leading research, as well as data collectors themselves. So again, to why does this all matter? In case you are not familiar with institutional review boards, or IRBs, these are independent committees that review plans for research to ensure that we are treating humans ethically and have thought about through all of the what ifs that could be involved. These are required for research involving interactions with individuals and federally funded studies. These generally require documentation for human subjects research certification for researchers and for the data collectors involved. Low-risk studies may be exempt or eligible for expedited review, but this is something you still have to go through this process of going to this independent committee to ensure that you are, yes, in fact, eligible or exempt. COVES is an exempt study, so we collect low-risk, unidentifiable data through the study. We don't include people in protected populations. This is why it's so important that all participants be over 18, and participation is voluntary, and we make that very clear when we go through training. We talk about what is that consent script. So although COVES is an exempt study, we do like to follow best practices for human subjects research, so informed consent and making sure that everyone has human subjects training. So with that, we are launching a COVES-specific human subjects research course. And I will pass it over to Alex.
Yeah, just stop your screen share. I'll switch over to mine.
There we go.
So just some context. I know that this course has been in development for I don't know, 4 years or something like that, a long time. We recognized it as a need in the COVES community a while ago when we used to rely on a free course. The PHRP one was free, and we would direct data collectors to do that one. It was a relatively low lift. They introduced a fee for it. We said, okay, so we switched to a different one that was much longer, but we had to kind of pare it down. Then that one was based in a Flash on the web browser, and then like that stopped being a supported web app, so no more of that course. So we just were always on the hunt for a new like free course, and the one we recommend now for folks is from the University of New Hampshire, and it's fine, but it's like a little bit weird to be using a UNH course that has, I think some of the questions even are really specific to the kind of research that they might be doing at University of New Hampshire, and it just didn't quite feel right. So for a while, we've been trying to get our own course off the ground that really feels more true to COVES and also gives people the background for this topic that they need. So our goals for this was to have it be lower burden, not like not giving you enough information, but enough information while not being totally overwhelming. So 60 to 90 minutes was our goal for COVES data collectors, giving an overview of best practices for data collection with human subjects from, that we've sort of gleaned from these various courses we've done over the years. And also kind of built in to give us a system for tracking who's collecting data, are they certified, et cetera. And just for context moving forward, no one has to redo anything that they did before. If you did the UNH training, if your data collectors use that, if they had city training and a certificate that we already have on file, it's all well and good. But kind of moving forward, we're going to transition to using our COVES system instead of these external systems that were kind of scattershot all over the place. So an important note too is that this course is really tailored to COVES data collection. It really does include a lot of the information from these other, human subjects training courses, but it's not going to count. It hasn't been certified by any kind of IRB as counting for human subjects research in general. So, if you were to, go to after leave your museum, go and start a new degree at a university and say, oh, I did COVES human subjects training, it probably wouldn't be good enough. It's not been approved. Not that it's not good enough, it just hasn't been approved that way. So you're gonna generally have to do one of those more official courses for something like that. But we think that this is a great thing for our COVES data collectors. It has 5 sections, and each kind of, you'll see, has this and this and this. So introduced to the Belmont report and some definitions, the federal regulations around human subjects research and assessing risk, collecting informed consent. That probably feels familiar to those of you who, taken the COVES data collection training, and the ideas of privacy and confidentiality, unanticipated problems, special populations, and then a kind of a COVES specific section about COVES data collection and data collection best practices. So I'm going to just sort of preview it for everybody, just click in and show you the beginning of it, the first section and what the quiz looks like, and then we'll just take a little bit of time for questions, and we'll end whenever we end. If that's early, then no problem. Hopefully you can see it switched over to the Qualtrics. Yeah, great. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit so we can all see that. So we start with a little bit of front matter, introducing what this course is, and then kind of a explanation of kind of what I just said on the slide before about what the sections are. Each of these 5 sections has a quiz following that, and then you'll have to get 80% correct overall to pass the course. You can take it as many times as you want, and we'll actually get an automated email when somebody passes the course. So it's kind of fun. And you can, we also have a PDF of the course material right here, so you can download that, review it, have it, written so that you can kind of give it to data collectors and just be a reference for you. So you might wish to download that in advance, but then going through the course sequentially. So I'll just show you an example of the first section here. The spot to select whatever museum you're from. If you don't see your museum, if we haven't managed to add it to the list and it's a new museum, you might say, oh, my museum's not listed, and then you can list it below. But barring that, you just put in your name, your email. I could actually put, I'm from the Museum of Science, so I want to here. If you have your own human subjects research certification, this is where you can upload it in this file upload section. So even if your data collectors are certified, rather than just emailing us a certificate, you're going to direct them to this page, and they'll put their name and email, go into our database for data collectors here. So, but if not, then you can proceed to the course. So then, just a little bit of more intro here before the course starts, and then it's really just some text. We've tried to keep it, again, relatively tight, but this is sort of what it looks like. You'll see human subjects training material. We have tried to sort of pepper in references to COVES along the way, which is obviously something you would not find in the UNH course or the city course or anything like that. But just trying to give some of the basic information about what's going on here. This is some definitions that are going to be really important for later: respect for persons, beneficence, and justice. And then really that's all that first section, and then more definitions here. So you have 2 sections like that. What is research? What are human subjects? And then you go to the quiz part. So it's 2 sections, and then you get 5 quiz questions. And I'm just going to kind of click some random things here and show you what happens. But just clicking, every question is just a simple answer one. There's 4 options, and you choose the best option. So let's see what score I got randomly. 1 out of 5. That's a bummer. So maybe I'll have to go back and take it again. But regardless, you go through the course and then you get a score at the end. And then if you don't pass, then it just it won't do anything. But if you do, you get a certification kind of thing. We're trying to mock up like a cool little certificate that folks can have with your name on it, and each data collector can have that certificate just to say that they finished it. But we'll have that record of folks having done it, and it'll be a lot easier for us to kind of keep track of that in the future. So then just to kind of lay out the process, really it's not going to be that different than it was before, just using our system as opposed to kind of a mishmash of other things, and not relying so much on searching our email when we're trying to find people's human subjects training certificates, instead having them kind of for reference in this system. So the old process, of course, was just to, if you had certification, email us your certificates, and if you didn't, you would take the UNH course and send them that way. Right now, we're actually doing a little bit more internal review. We're having a couple of our research assistants pilot the course and give us some proofreading and that kind of feedback. So in probably post AAM a week or two, we'll have the final link ready for you. And when that's ready, we'll send out a big email, maybe make a forum post on the website with the final link. And then the new system will be, if you have certification, you'll just upload it into that form like I showed you, and that new data collectors will complete this COVES Human Subjects Training course as opposed to one of the other options from before. So I think that is all the important information about this course that I wanted to convey to you all. But just to say that we're happy that this finally became a thing, and we're not relying on some other institutions' kind of work to do our COVES Human Subjects Training. So with that, I just want to see if folks have any questions about the course, Human Subjects Training in general, the process. We'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. Some stuff in the chat.
Yeah, so just jumping in, Lauren, absolutely take it as a refresher. In fact, that's some of the front material that Alex mentioned. Take this course as often as you want. There's no limit to who should take it or why. It is intended to be a training resource. So by all means, if you just did City, take this one to see what it looks like. And again, there's no expectation that people pass on the first try. It is open so that people can professionally develop. Sarah, other really good question. Because we are not federally backed and that this is not actually a certification course for federal research, we do not have strict guidelines on that. I think 5 years is probably a good minimum, but I would actually probably encourage us to consider doing it a little bit more frequently, like every 3 years, 2 to 3 years, with the acknowledgement that this isn't a 7-hour course. Redoing City when your certifications expire is a huge deal. Redoing COVES, if it takes an hour, hopefully it's not a big deal. So we will work on a process for tracking data collectors across sites and sending out reminders. And one thing actually that we didn't mention just yet is we have prepared a little certificate of completion. We're calling it our certificate of awesomeness that we're going to send out to everyone who does successfully complete the course or pass the course. Any other questions about the training course or the human subjects research process overall?
I had a quick question. Is it fine for us to take, even if we are not directly collecting the data, but we're supervising those who do? Or
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
I think even in sort of the official human subjects training guidelines, even folks who are like working with data are typically recommended to take these kinds of courses, because some of the ways that you can be, you might run into ethical issues with data are not necessarily directly interfacing with people, but in how you use and protect their data. So absolutely, yeah. We won't necessarily require it in the same way that we do for data collectors, but there's no restriction on that.
Yeah, and some of the other questions. Alyssa, this should be out next week. It's done now. We're literally, I mean, I was going to say literally crossing our T's and dotting our I's. We're literally catching errant commas and grammatical errors and stuff like that. So the course works, it's finished, it's ready to go. We just want to make sure it's in the best possible shape before sharing the link with everybody. So that will go out next week, we expect.
Oh, and Amy, your question about using it for other data collection. Yeah, I mean, as long as people understand that there's going to be COVES references peppered throughout, you know, but they'll know what COVES is and understand to ignore that for the time being. But and I know if again, it's not like acceptable or reviewed for the same way that like City has been, but if just a short refresher or something like that, absolutely use it however you want.
And Katie, is this required of all data collectors at each institution? The official answer is yes. Again, because as Allison mentioned, COVES is technically exempt. There's no federal reason why data collectors need to do this before their first data collection shift, except for best practice, except for professional development. It's our expectation that all data collectors have the same sense of ethics in approaching museum visitors when collecting COVES surveys. So we would hope that that happens before collecting data. But the expectation is that all data collectors would do this as part of the training package when they get into the process of doing COVES.
I'm just going to answer Jill's question too quickly here. So Jill, depending on when you started COVES, you might have gotten some different random course like recommended. This is the UNH one that we found after the I think it was like FHI or something like that, and it was extremely long and flash based, and you know, it had to be like, just do these 2 sections because all the other stuff is not applicable. And this was when we found to like replace that when when Flash became not supported anymore. So this is what that one looks like, and it's obviously you see UNH Research Office, and then when you complete it, you actually get like an automated email that says with the certificate in it. But you know, it's all UNH specific, and it's kind of a funny one, but it was a perfectly workable solution in the meantime.
And if you're looking for something that is federally recognized, we'll post the slides from this, but City, PHRP, or the US Health and Human Services are all good, well-respected courses if you are looking for something that is a robust certification that works for federal studies.
If you're a faculty member or a graduate student, you have to do City for most universities.
Yeah, so
that's the most robust, of course.
Yeah.
And the timing is right for me because mine's about to expire, so I'm going to have to redo it. But I'll go check out the COVES one and I'll give you some feedback.
Sure.
I'm going to do my 7 hours and then I'll be like, ooh, just an hour.
I have to redo my City in September. But if you're using volunteers or students from a university and they have access to City, this is a great thing for them to have on a resume as they leave and go on. So if you're working,
try to sell that.
That's something that we do with our youth staff is we have them do the City. So when they leave and go on to other things that they have that certification. So if you have access to that and have the time to commit to it, it's a great resource and a great thing to go through.
And Nedra, I'll just echo your comment. If you have feedback on our course, please do send it our way. Alex wasn't joking. This has literally been 4 years in development, ebbing and flowing in terms of a priority. It is good. It is not perfect. It's not a 7-hour course. But if you have feedback like this part was confusing or this part wasn't as relevant, we will absolutely take that into consideration because we own it, we can change it, we can make it better for everyone else who's using it. So please don't hesitate. If you are experienced with human subjects research or just want to offer feedback, we'd gladly accept that as well.
Okay.
I guess this wouldn't apply to anybody who's on the call now, but I'm wondering about how we imagine this being sort of integrated into a part of the like onboarding training. Get comfortable getting on the floor, using the, asking people to complete the survey process.
Yeah, I mean, well, instead of in the COVES data collection training that we go through, there's kind of a reference to, oh, and then you should do human subjects training, and here's the link from UNH that you'll go to. This is the course we recommend. And so obviously instead of that, we'll say, have your data collectors do this COVES human subjects training course. And we'll need to kind of figure out how best the flow works, but we did try to kind of build into this. Like we debated for a while about whether it should have a COVES specific section, but the nice thing then is that data collectors would maybe get that information reinforced a little bit. So see it in the data collection training and then see it again in this course, having kind of the written best practices for COVES data collection and the method kind of explained and related to human subjects training. So
Cool.
it might be a nice way to kind of reinforce all of that. I don't know what in the end, whether it's going to be best, do it before the data collection training, do it after the data collection training. That's something that we'll get some feedback about from folks as we actually roll it out at our next set of sites that come on board.
And we are also working on revising our whole training process. So we will be taking this into account as one of the pieces that is part of it and what we're asking people to do and in what order and what materials are available.
Good job, team. It's like the Olympics. You said it 4 years, Alex?
Basically, yeah. As long as we could find like a thing to stick in there in the meantime while we worked on this, it was like, okay, we don't have to do it right this second. But it's nice to actually eventually do it.
We're excited for all of you to have access to it and know that it's a reliable training thing that you can always come back to for all of your data collection needs. So as Amy points out, whether it's COVES or something else, we hope this is useful for you. And selfishly, we hope this allows us to keep track of you and your data collectors a little bit better and offer you more supports in that area. That's why we built it. So with that said, we are happy to stick around for some lingering last minute questions. We are also happy to take questions over email as we send this out. But again, you should have access to it, direct access, sometime next week once we get our final edits in. And otherwise, we're just, as always, very grateful that you could all be here on this call. Join us for less than an hour. And we look forward to seeing you either at an upcoming conference or on next month's Community of Practice call.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.